Yes, yes. 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 It's try to do. Huh? I'm using pure water to use that cup now. I'm not waiting. Before I'm saying. What was Manos doing with it?
Yes, good afternoon once again, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Holadayo. Our facilitator is here already. So I'm just going to um, give a brief overview of the person that was going to be talking to us today, and also quickly talk about what we did last week. So I'm not going into teaching, right? What I just want to do is to just intimate us with the 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 major gist we had last week. Yes, so this is the day 2 of our webinar, basically data protection, compliance for startup, and we say what every organization needs to know. So we have today with us Oladayo Akimokun, who is a cyber security lawyer. Please, if you are not talking, kindly mute yourself. Yes, good afternoon once again, can everyone. I just do that? I'm trying to meet someone. All right. What we'll be doing today is straightforward. We want to look into the second part of our discussion. We started discussing data protection for compliance, and last week we spoke extensively on information or on organizational measure, right? And today we're going to be dealing with the information security aspect of yes, the discussion. So Oladayo is here, who is going to be taking us, but before she comes up, let me just quickly read a few things about her bio. Like I said earlier, she is a cybersecurity lawyer. Oladayo Akimokun is a lawyer specializing in cybersecurity, risk assessment, and compliance, and data privacy. Holadayo advises organizations on creating robust risk management framework and regulatory compliance in various aspects of information communication technology. In recognition of our outstanding contribution to the legal profession. Oladayo was honored as one of the top 10 exceptional professionals in law at the iconic brand Africa Award 2024. That is a testament to our dedication, skill, and growing impact in the industry. Oladayo is a dedicated member of several professional associations, some of which include the Nigerian Bar Association, Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum, Information System Audit and Control Association, and the International Information System Security Certification Consortium. So I'm glad. I'm so sorry for that. I'm glad to have Oladayo here with us today. And Dayo is going to be um, sharing knowledge with us about information technology, information security as regards how you can comply with data protection law. Don't forget that data breach is something very, very um, crucial, which is also a sanctionable offense under Nigerian Data Protection Act. And so Oladayo is going to be taking us through how we can protect information digitally and also manually to ensure data security, to ensure confidentiality, to ensure integrity, and also availability. Thank you so much once again. So I want to yield the floor to Oladayo. Oladayo, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Bitayo. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much, Bitayo, for this opportunity. I do not take it for granted. I appreciate you. Thank you for your contribution to the industry too. It's actually not easy coming up with something like this and staying true to it. I've been there. I know how sweet. I'm talking ironically now, how sweet it can be. So well done. And congratulations on this. You pulled through. So to the participants, so good to be here. It's a privilege to be speaking to you all this evening. I appreciate your time here. And I hope we have a wonderful learning time together here. I'm trying to share my screen now so that we can delve right into a discussion for today. First of all, can we confirm if we can see my screen?
Yes, please.
All right.
Yes,
all right.
you can see clearly.
All right. I can see Mr. Mutala. So good to have you here, sir.
Yes, how are you? Please, sorry, I went to mosque. You know, we pray by 4. That is why I'm late.
What did you say, sir?
I say I went to mosque. We pray by 4. That is why I'm late. I'm just coming from mosque.
Oh, that's all right. We just started.
That's why
So
I
you've not
joined.
missed.
Yes, my
You've
name
not
is
missed
Mutala.
anything. You haven't missed anything yet.
Okay. Should I introduce myself or there is no introduction?
No. It's okay. I was just saying hi to you.
Okay,
Just
thank
like I'm saying hi to other participants. So first of all, I like my class being interactive. You know, I will engage us in questions because I really do not like dry classes. I want my audience to follow through. Just as I'm talking, we are all contributing to each other's growth and learning. BBTI has established the foundation because this class is based off from what we did last week. It's a follow-up of what we did last week. And that's why today we are talking about the technical measures for data protection. Now, you would recall that our speaker last week explained to us what data protection, data privacy and protection is, because they are different things. They are not the same thing. They are a different concept entirely. So in her explanation, she told us that data privacy deals with the handling, usage, and the sharing of personal data. That is what data privacy focuses on. And when it comes to data protection, we are talking about the measures and techniques that we put in place to safeguard the data that we are talking about. So while data privacy focuses on proper handling, proper processing, proper collection, proper sharing of data, data protection focuses on the measures and the techniques to protect this data. And that's why we are going to be exploring this topic this evening. Because I would always say something. I used to say that data protection, data security is not only the work of the IT, it is everybody's responsibility in the organization. So, what is data security? But before I even go there at all, I want us to see something. Trying to, okay. Can you see my screen fully, guys?
We are not seeing it fully.
You can see it fully?
No.
No, okay.
Yes.
I'm trying to, sorry, let me. Trying to get back to the full screen. What about now?
Yeah.
Yes, we have
Now
the
it
full
is seen now.
All right. Okay. All right. So today we are achieving these objectives. The first is to know the provision of the NDPA. Everybody's aware. I want to believe that we are aware that the major regulation that regulates data protection in Nigeria is the Nigerian Data Protection Act 2023. So by the end of this session, we must be able to know the provision of the NDPA in respect of data security. We also would be able to understand and know the applicability of various data security measures, and also know how data can be securely stored and transmitted. We also need to understand the various technical controls and their goals. And finally, we are going to understand what we call vulnerability assessment and penetration testing as it affects data security. So those are what we seek to achieve under today's session. All right, so what is data security? Data security focuses on the proper handling, data privacy, first of all, just to give a bit of introduction. Data privacy focuses on the proper handling, use and sharing of personal data, while data protection focuses on the measures and the techniques used to safeguard data.
Okay.
Now, if you read the Nigerian Data Protection Act, which is the major regulation, Section 39 of the Act provides that a data controller and processor shall implement. You need to understand, and you need to get the fact that this is not a matter of option. It is a compulsory action required under the Act. That's why the word shall is used. So a data controller and a data processor, I want to believe that we understand who a data controller and a processor is from our discussion last week. So the Act provides that the data controller and data processor shall implement appropriate technical and organization measures to ensure security, integrity, and confidentiality of data in its possession or under its control. You would observe that I capitalized technical and organizational, because when we are talking about data security, we are not just talking about policies, which is the organization part of it. We are not just talking about conducting data protection impact assessment. We are talking about technical part of it. That's why the Act specifically mentioned technical and organizational, which means that it has to go hand in hand. If you have organizational measures in place, you need to have technical measures. So if a cyber attack occurs and your company is being probed, the organization is being probed by the regulator, they have to see that there are reasonable measures, both technical and organizational measures put in place for you to say, okay, for you to at least, escape the wrath of the regulator at that point in time. But if the organizational measure is available without any technical measure, you have not done your part. You have not fulfilled the requirement of the Act, because the Act requires that you put in technical and organizational measures. And today we are talking about the technical measures that we can put in place to ensure security, integrity, and confidentiality of data. Now, for security, integrity, and confidentiality of data, this basically, they are what cybersecurity, or let's say information security, which is the general heading, information security seeks to achieve. And that's why I said that the 3 pillars of information security is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we can't talk about information security successfully, or you can't say that your company has an effective and comprehensive cybersecurity implementation at work when it doesn't achieve these 3 things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So when it comes to confidentiality, we are saying that we ensure that people who do not have unauthorized access, people don't have unauthorized access to a data or information at a particular point in time, or whatever time it is. That's confidentiality, unauthorized access. We are not granting unauthorized access to anybody. Nobody who is not supposed to access a document or a data at a point in time has access to it. And when it comes to integrity, we are saying that this data maintains the original state. It has not been modified. It has not been altered. It has not been, changed. So that's integrity. So the way I left my data with you, if I wrote A, I left it as A without a dot. So integrity of the data will be maintained if I come back and still see it as A and not A with a dot or B. Now, availability means that a data is available to me at every single time I need it. That is availability. It means that if I say I need to go to the bank to access I want to see my database, I want to see my biodata, they can't tell me that, oh, everything, we lost it during this incident. The company at that point in time has not fulfilled that part of information security, which is availability. So availability speaks to the fact that I can access my data at any time that I need it. Now, data security, which is what we are here to discuss today, when it comes to technical measures speaks to data security. Now, what is data security? It refers to the practices, technologies, and measures designed to protect digital data from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction. So when you understand what security is, you know that security, the major reason or the main aim of a security at a particular point in time or in a particular place is to protect. So the data security means you are protecting data. You're protecting data. Now, data security covers different areas, both hardware, software, storage and users' devices, access and administrative controls, organizational policies, and procedures. So data security covers all these things. In organizational policies, it's going to be addressing security. Procedures will address security. Storage and users' devices has to be secured. Your software has to be secured. Even your hardware has to be secured. So data security deals with all this area. Now, there are various ways to ensure data security, which is what we're going to be discussing today. Don't forget, we're talking about the technical measures for data protection. So there are various ways to ensure data security. And one of this way is what we call the access control. Now, you must have heard access control, probably in a place or in your organization where you work. Access control regulates access to system by users to ensure that all access is authorized according to some specified policy. Now, what this is saying that is that organizations have rules and policies in place. Now, these policies now applies to who can access data and system in a particular environment. So access control speaks to the fact that people have access to the data that they need and not what they do not need. So the use of access control list filters access to directories, files, and networks, which helps to define which users are allowed to access which information and system at what point in time. So access control, just like the word implies, you are controlling the access of people to a particular thing. You are controlling the access of people to a particular data or in a particular environment. So that means that anybody or just anybody does not have access at any time or does not have access to everything at every time. So the components of access control, we have different components to access control. Talk of authentication, talk of authorization, talk of access, talk of management, talk of auditing. Now, when it comes to authentication, it is the initial process. You would recall, or let me give you this example. You remember your cell phone, the mobile phone that you have in your hand. I believe that 100%, or let's say 90% of us use password, or maybe patterns, or maybe thumbprint logins. So authentication is the initial process of establishing the identity of a user. So authentication would happen when I input my password, or input my PIN, or input my pattern. Is to establish that this person owns this device. And when it comes to an organization, imagine you resume your office, everybody's entitled, or everybody has their system or their computer at their offices. Now, when you get to your workstation, authentication is you logging into your computer and putting your password. Now, the next layer of authentication is authorization. So while authentication establishes identity, authorization adds another layer to authentication. Now, what authorization does is to specify access rights and privileges to resources to determine whether the user should be granted access to data or make a specific transaction. Now, authorization goes beyond just establishing identity. It ensures that indeed this person needs to be granted the right or the access to this particular system at that point in time. So you think of authorization as an extra layer. For example, multi-factor authentication. I don't know if you have seen, or let me say that if you have activated your two-factor authentication on your WhatsApp, you know, sometimes when you log in and when you come out of WhatsApp and go back to WhatsApp, it will tell you to input your PIN. There's a PIN that it will tell you it's a 6-digit PIN because you've actually activated your two-factor authentication. So that is authorization. So sometimes authorization can come in form of biometrics. You know, it could be what they will say. Authorization can come in form of probably what you have, what you know, and who you are. Who you are would be something like your biometrics, your thumbprint, your voice, your face ID. You know, some phones, once you just put your face, once you just put it before your face like this, your phone, your gadget opens. So that's what authorization does. It gives an extra layer to authentication, right? Now, access, you know, that's the next stage. Once authorization and authentication is completed, identity is verified and access is granted. So when I'm trying to use my phone, when I'm trying to use my WhatsApp, I logged in my password, you know, to open my phone. Then I went to WhatsApp, and WhatsApp requested that I put in my 2FA PIN. And when I put in my 2FA PIN, WhatsApp already knows that, oh, this person is actually the owner. The identity has been established, and so the access has been granted. Now, when it comes to management, now organization can achieve management of their access control system by adding and removing authentication and authorizations of users and systems. So think of management as, oh, if there's a particular administrator of an access control list, the organization is able to determine when to remove a user's authorization and authentication or when to add it back. you would recall that all these things are in a bid to protect data. And data is not just the ones stored on your system. Data are the ones you have on your paper. People will still use paper today. Data are the ones stored in the cloud. So the organization ensures access management under access control when it is able to add and remove people that are authorized at a particular point in time. It determines when to add them. It determines when to remove them. And when it comes to auditing under access control, it enables organizations to gather data around user activity and analyze their information to discover potential access violation. I would give you an instance. For example, in my organization, we have what we call the access control card. They call it key card generally. That is, you have this card that once you want to enter the organization, you put it on the machine, it beeps and you enter. Right? Now, auditing will now be the people in charge of the data, entering the access control machine. Auditing will be them looking at the activity. Oh, who entered at 8 a.m.? Who left at 5 p.m.? Who entered at 12 a.m.? There's probably, let's say something happened in your office. Probably there was an incident of theft, right? And the IT department, they are in charge of the access control list. They picked it up and they started doing audits. Oh, somebody entered at this so period of time. This is a strange time for anybody to enter because we resume 8 and we close by 5. Okay, let's assume people are staying back till like 8 p.m. Everybody should have gone home. So who is this person that came at 1 a.m. and did this thing? They would audit all the logs. So those are components of access control, or authentication, authorization, access management, and auditing. Now, still talking on access control, it doesn't stop at that. We have major types of access control. Like I said, there are many types of access control. That's why I said major. Now, we have attribute-based access control, mandatory access control, discretionary access control, role-based access control. I call them major because you can commonly, identify this kind of access control in your organization. Now, attribute-based access control, it involves access decisions. It happens when access decisions are made based on set of attributes associated with a user or a resources or an environment. Now, when it comes to attribute-based access control, I want you to let me use the example of Microsoft Azure, which is a cloud environment, right? Now, attribute-based access control would happen if, let's say, I am as a particular user in that cloud environment. If I'm granted, let's say, a viewer access, because we have different position. We have different, I don't want to use the word role because so that it won't confuse you. We have different, let me use role then. We have different roles in that particular environment. We have global administrator, we have viewers, we have readers, we have editors, we have different positions. Now, attribute-based access control will now be that access is given to you based on the particular role that you are in that you have been assigned in that particular cloud environment. So it is said to be attributes associated with the user, the resource, and the environment. So if I'm a global administrator in that cloud security space, I would have access to the, to the roles or to the features that global administrators can have access to. Or if I'm giving a reader access, I will only have access to the feature that a reader can have access to in that cloud-based environment. So access is granted or denied based on a policy that evaluates this attribute. So if you understand how cloud security works or cloud environment works, you will actually get this better, right? You can't have access if your role is not granted a particular access at a point in time. If your role is a reader's role, the only feature that you would be able to get access to is the reader feature. If you are a editor role, the only role that you can feature that you can get access to is the readers or editors feature. You cannot be a reader and get access to a reviewer features. The other one is mandatory access control. Mandatory access control, here the access decisions are made based on sets or rules that are mandated by the central authority. So users are not able to alter, revoke, or set permissions. So it happens where there is a central administrator. Now, it's the administrator that will now say, okay, I'm going to give this person this particular access. You take this reader access. The other person take viewer access. The other person take reviewer access. So all the type of access that you can get is determined by the central authority. So access is granted based on the sensitivity level of the data and clearance level of the user. So the sensitivity, when it comes to sensitivity level of the data, the role that you are, the authority decides which access to give you based on the sensitivity level of the data. If the data is highly confidential, not everybody will have access to it. There'll be a set of people that's going to have access to it, to a highly confidential information in an organization. If it is a public data, oh, okay, anybody can have access to it. If it is a private data, anybody can, those people that can have access to it can have access to it. So this kind of access control is determined by the central authority based on the sensitivity and the clearance level of the user. Now, when it comes to discretionary access control, this access control is actually the decision resides with the owner of the data. So the owner of the data decides whether to give you access or to deny you access. I will use the example of, when you want to log into some particular website or use some particular app. For example, this Zoom. Zoom asked me, do you want Zoom to have access to your microphone and your video? So if I say no, I've denied it access. That's discretionary access control. So I determine whether you should enter or it should be denied. Now, when it comes to role-based access control is based on the role that users have within the organization. The role, I'm talking about the actual job title that you hold in your environment or your organization. If you are a senior associate, there's a level of information or data that you'll be exposed to compared to an ordinary associate. If you're a managing partner, the level of information that you're going to be exposed to or be granted access to will be different from a senior associate. The HR will also have the data they are exposed to based on our own function in that organization. So that means that, for example, I work in a law firm, there is nothing the HR needs. There is no access the HR need to know anything about our matters. HR does not have any business with our matters. The business of the HR is to cater for the welfare of the staff and the organization in particular, right? So there is nothing the HR needs to know or needs to have access to when it comes to, oh, there's a matter in court between so and so. This is the fact of the case. This is the document they sent to us. HR does not need access. So she can get the access. That is what we call role-based access control. So you get access to only the data or the information that you need to achieve your job description or to execute your task. The cleaners in an organization do not need access to the health biodata of staff. Once they have access to it, that's data exposure. That's an incident already. Once they have access to it, that's an incident. because they do not need that information. They do not have need. That information would not, whether or not they have access to that information, it won't help them or deter them from doing their job as a cleaner. Now, this will bring me to what we call the principle of least privilege. So this one also comes in handy when it comes to access control. It means that people, users,
also for
have bare minimum level of permission they need to perform their job or their function. Somebody say something. Okay, I guess the person is not talking, probably. All right, so when it comes to principle of least privilege, we are saying that a user only have the bare minimum level of permission they need to perform their job or functions. So that means that whatever information that will not require you to perform your job or function, you don't need it and you will not be given such access. Just like the example I gave, there's nothing an HR professional needs when it comes to my law firm. Or let's say the HR is working in an hospital. He is only expected to deal with staff, the data of staff. He's not expected to know anything about the data of patients. But, you know, we are in a country called Nigeria where sometimes the HR will also be acting as, acting in another capacity. This is Nigeria. But this is against the principle of least privilege. Let each role, let them have their defined job description. And that's why when they want to post a job opportunity, they will tell you the description. This is the duty you are expected to come and do here. So the data that you need to execute those duties, that is the access that you need. You do not need access to any other information or data that will not help you in the performance of your job or function. Now, another method or measures to ensure data security is what we call encryption. Of course, this is not a new terminology. You must have heard encryption one way or the other. So encryption is the use of algorithms to scramble data and hide its true meaning. Basically, encryption happens when you hide a particular information and the other party, who is not supposed to know what is there, does not know what is there. Encrypting data ensures that messages can only be read by recipients with the appropriate decryption key. So data needs to be encrypted when it is in two different states, whether at rest or in transit. So data at rest is when it is stored in the database or in a system. That's data at rest. Now, data in transit is when it is transmitted between parties. So encryption should occur when data is either at rest or in transit. Now, encryption is that you are making a data unreadable for the person that is not supposed to read it. For example, let's assume that I sent hello everyone. That's the actual information in what I sent. But what people saw is maybe hashtag asterisk, 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 12, asterisk, 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 01, exclamation mark. That's encryption. But by the time it gets to the people I sent hello all to, they actually saw hello all. They are able to use the key. They're able to use it to decipher that particular encrypted data, and they would see the meaning. Now, encryption has different benefits, from privacy to security. You know, when people cannot understand what is in that particular document at a point in time, it is private, it is secured. I can't have access to it because I can't understand it. I don't know what it is. encryption also, ensures compliance to regulatory provisions. For example, the NDPA that requires that data processor or data controller has to put in place technical measures. So if I encrypt a data, I'm actually complying to that act, to the provision of that act. Also, encryption ensures that users feel safe on the internet because I know that my information are protected as long as I'm using a secured internet browser. So as long as I'm using the secured internet browser, I am sure that my information is secured. So that is what encryption does. You are sending a plain text, you're sending it and changing it to something confusing so that the attacker or whoever is not meant to see it will not see it. Now, encryption did not just happen today. It's happened as far back as, the period of the world wars, the First World War, the Second World War. It has happened as far back as that. I recently, in the course of research, I saw a story about where encryption was actually used by the German government. Now, that was before the Second World War, after the First World War. Now, Germans want Americans to support them because they knew if Americans support them, they will be undefeated. Right. They will be undefeated. Now, they looked, because America, according to the story, to the history, America as at that time had not even joined the war. America was not interested, had not joined the war. But the German government wants them to join and support them. On the other hand, the British also want the Americans to join and support them. Now, the story said that one of the German authority, they mentioned the name, but I really do not care about the name. One of the German authority now mentioned that we can actually do this thing. We can actually plan it this way. Let's try and cause a little bit of war in a part of America so that when there is war, because America does not really care, it doesn't want to join anybody. So at least if they don't join us and they don't join the British, we were definitely going to conquer the British. So what they planned, according to that particular official, was that let us cause small war in America so that they would have that one and be facing and be busy with it. And they will not have time to even join the British or even join us because it looks like they're not even going to join the Germans at all. So instead of going to the British or going with the British, let's cause war in your country and you'll be facing that one. That was the strategy they wanted to use. So in a bid to pass the information to one another, to the country that would go and start that war in America, the official advised, or let's say recommended, that they encrypt that particular letter. They encrypt that particular information at that point in time. But as luck we have it, America now, they always have things. They always have a way of being a step ahead. They got hold of it. They were able to, the British got hold of the letter, not the Americans. They got hold of the letter. They de-encrypt it. They decrypt it, They decrypt it. They were able to decrypt that code, everything that they coded. They decrypted that code and they read the information contained. So the moment they saw what the Germans were planning to do, they now published a news about it. That instigated the Americans to join the war. So I'm saying this story so that you would understand the fact that encryption has been since way back. It's just that then it was in writing. They had a way of writing their text and all that. But now it is digital. So that's been way back. Imagine as far back as the World War. So that is encryption. It is to hide information from another person till it gets to the recipient that is meant for. Now, there are types of encryption. Don't forget, I said that encryption is also part of the data security measures that you can put in place to fulfill your responsibility under the Act, which is what? To ensure that technical and organizational measures are put in place. So if you put encryption in place, the encryption method, you are actually complying with the Act. If you put access control in place, you are complying with the Act. Now, type of encryption: symmetric encryption, asymmetric encryption, end-to-end encryption, advanced encryption. There are different types anyways, but these 4 ones, I just want us to examine these 4 ones instead of the other many types of encryptions anyways. So the symmetric encryption, uses one secret key both to encrypt and to decrypt information. That is, what it takes to encrypt an information is also the same thing that it takes to decrypt that information. It is the oldest and the best known technique, according to research. It's the oldest and the best known technique. However, the main drawback that this particular type of encryption is the fact that both parties need to have the key used to encrypt the data before they can decrypt it. So that means that I need to wait for the other party that wants to encrypt it first before I can get the key to decrypt it. But because it is a less complex and a faster means to encrypt, it is actually preferred for transmitting data in bulk, right? So remember, symmetric encryption, both the encryptor and decryptor are using the same secret key. However, for asymmetric encryption, this uses a pair of keys. That is, it is 2. Just imagine a communication. You are talking, I'm talking. That's communication, right? 2 people. Now, in asymmetric encryption, there is a key to encrypt. There is a key to decrypt. Now, the key to encrypt, they call it public key. They call it public key. That is, it is actually encrypted, but it is in the public. Now, we are going to use the example of a website. When you visit a website, especially the one that requires sensitive information, I'm trying to explain to you how, asymmetric encryption can come in place. So when you visit a website now and you, for example, you're sharing sensitive information, let's say you visited Alibaba or Jumia, right? And the sensitive information that you're definitely sharing your credit card numbers. Now, the connection needs to be secured for you to be able to securely use that particular website. So what asymmetric encryption will do is that the website generates the pair of keys that you need to encrypt your data. Now, the public key is shared with your browser when you visit that website, so that when you enter your sensitive information, your browser uses that public key to encrypt it. And the encrypted data can only be decrypted by the website private key. That is, at that point in time, in the back door, inside that website or wherever the website can be, in their backend, the moment you want to enter, especially when you're using a secured website, a secured browser. So when you log into that website and you put in your sensitive information, the website automatically releases a public key to encrypt it and to encrypt your data. And when it gets to you or wherever it wants to get to, it is also decrypted by the private key also produced or let's also shared by that same website. So asymmetric is in 2 ways. It produces the public key to encrypt and also the private key to decrypt it, unlike the symmetric encryption. Now, the other form of encryption is the end-to-end encryption. The end-to-end encryption, if you call on WhatsApp, you always see end-to-end encryption. You will see it. They will tell you that this call is encrypted, and they will specifically tell you that it's an end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption ensures that only the two users communicating with one another can read their messages. So what this end encryption is even about is the fact that even the telecom themselves or the service provider, like WhatsApp, they cannot decrypt the messages. That's what end-to-end encryption is. So ordinarily, everybody would prefer an end-to-end encryption because even the internet service provider cannot decrypt the messages in the end-to-end encryption. So it is generally seen as the most secure way to communicate privately and securely online. So that's end-to-end encryption. Don't forget, your WhatsApp uses an end-to-end encryption. And the last type of encryption I'm going to be discussing with you today is the advanced encryption. Now, the advanced encryption, the AES, was developed in 1997 by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, as an alternative to data encryption standard. So the advanced encryption standard is an alternative to the data encryption standard. Now, the advanced encryption standard has 3 different key lengths. And this key length refers to the size of the encryption key used to encrypt and decrypt your data. So they will say that the longer the key length, the more difficult to break encryption. Now, when you hear key length, I'm not talking about an actual key that is long. We are talking about something like a 128 bits, 192 bits. That's how they say, that's how the key length comes, 256 bits. Now, the higher the length of the key, yeah, the more difficult it is for attackers. So imagine this advanced encryption is using a 256-bit key length. It's going to be more difficult for the attackers to decrypt such information. So AES is widely used for protecting data at rest in such applications as databases and hard drives. So advanced encryption standard is mostly used for data in rest or data stored in hard drives. So that said, we'll come to the next measures that we can put in place, which is data backups and disaster recovery. So far, let me ask us a brief question to know whether or not we are here. How am I going to go back to this place now? All right. So my question is, what pillar of information security do you think that access control achieves or seeks to achieve? What pillar? You know, remember we have confidentiality, integrity, availability. So for my explanation of access control, what pillar do you think it, achieves? You can just, if you want to talk, you can talk. If you want to put it in the chat box.
Accessibility.
I go with confidentiality.
Okay, let me hear from Mr. Julius Agbola first. So, Mr. Julius Agbola, can you?
Yeah, it's confidentiality.
Confidentiality. Okay. We'll come back to it. Mr. Mutala, let's hear from you.
I also go with confidentiality.
Confidentiality. You are both right, actually, but it's not just confidentiality, it also achieves integrity. Don't forget that integrity seeks to ensure that a data is not modified or altered by unauthorized persons. So when it comes to access control, the essence of the access control is that you're not giving access. And when you're not giving access, you can't do what you're not supposed to do. So the data is still maintained. So in both, it is achieving two things, confidentiality and integrity. Now, for what's it called? Encryption. What does it seek to achieve?
Is it public to answer, everybody?
Of course.
Yeah, the encryption is integrity.
I can hear you, Mr. Mutala.
Yeah, it's integrity.
Yeah, thank you. Confidentiality and integrity. So that's what the data encryption also seek to achieve. So you would see that we are able to connect all these measures that we are mentioning. We are able to connect them to the pillars of information security, because we can't say a measure is effective if we can't connect it to any pillar of information security. So if, for example, your organization just put in a measure, just putting a measure in place and say, because they said we should put in technical measure, we are putting this measure. What does this seek? What pillar of cybersecurity or information security has it achieved? Is it availability? Is it confidentiality? Is it integrity? What does it achieve? Or what does it seek to achieve? All right, so moving on, we would go next to data backups and disaster recovery. Data security as a whole. There is no security. Don't forget the CIA triad. Availability is part of it. And we can't talk about data security and not talk about data backups and disaster recovery. Right. Because the aim of the technical controls and the measures that we are putting in place is to ensure that our data is secured. But there are some times that things happen that are not even attacks. So, because cybersecurity or information security is not only about attacks, cyber attacks, theft, loss. Anything can happen. The act of God can happen, and your data just disappears. Pew. Thunder can strike, and the entire database of an organization is gone. There was a time, one of our clients that we're working with, the bank, told us, because we needed a document to tender in court, and we are like, guys, you give us this document. They told us, at the moment, we can't access any document, or something happened to our database. Everything is shut down for now. And in my head, because I'm doing cybersecurity, I was like, you guys don't have disaster recovery plan in place. You guys don't have, so because something happened, you are not going to do anything. So in my head, we are coming back to that disaster recovery plan, because every organization is expected to have it. You can't predict what can happen, especially when it comes to they call it act of God. Thunder can strike, earthquake can happen, especially in the countries that experience those kind of things. They need to put some things in place, and that's what we call data backups and disaster recovery. Now, this is another set of data security that is referred to as data resiliency. So when you hear data backups, data recovery, they will say, okay, all these things are under data resiliency. It's under data resiliency. Now, data resiliency is concerned with the ability of an organization to protect, recover, and maintain its data in the face of disruptions and ensuring business continuity. So they will say that an organization is resilient when, in spite of any cyber attacks or other occurrence that happens, the organization is still able to get back up. The organization is still able to continue its business despite all those things that might happen to it. Now, organizations can mitigate the risk of accidental destruction or loss of data by creating backups or copies of their data. Data backups are vital for protecting information and also to ensure that it is always available. Now, when we talk about data backup, of course, everybody knows what backup is. You know that you are duplicating something. Sometimes our WhatsApp will tell us that we are doing backup. You just see your WhatsApp loading. It's loading to your email. Sometimes they can tell you to determine how frequent you want your data backups to be. Is it weekly? Is it daily? Is it monthly? Is it yearly? So everybody is actually exposed to data backup. You know, that time that you have, what's this thing called? Flash drive. You copied, you downloaded a movie, but because you don't want to lose that movie, probably from your phone or from your laptop, you copied it to your flash drive. That's data backup. So data backup is the process of duplicating data to prevent accidental loss or corruption, while disaster recovery involves wider strategies for recovering IT systems and data ensuing from disruptive incidents. Now, the significance of backup and recovery cannot be overlooked. These mechanisms are the core of securing valuable data assets, complying with standards, and preserving consumers, shareholders' trust. Because these are one of the benefits when it comes to backup and recovery. Imagine, okay, the issue that happened, was it California? Was it 2 months ago? The fire incident that happened. So imagine it affected some companies, it burned down some companies. And, you know, after a while, of course, every company must have a time that they believe or they have planned to recover when anything happens. Now, let's say that, okay, within that time, they were able to come back and they are telling their customers that, well, we are sorry, we lost all your data, it took by in the fire, blah, 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 like that. You know, in a way, I won't trust these people now. You remember the incident with GT Bank last year? People could not access their money. Today, they will see 500,000. Tomorrow, they will see 10,000. Next tomorrow, they will see 5. The upper day, they will see 0 naira. You would imagine the number of customers that GT Bank must have likely lost during that period. Because most people start opening another account, OPayO, PAMPayO, blah, blah, blah. At least they can access their money, right? That is what recovery does. Backup and recovery. It ensures that valuable data are secured and that you also comply with standards and preserve consumers and shareholders' trust. Because if I'm able to access my data when I need it, my data is not modified by anybody. My data is not, exposed without authority. I'm fine. I would trust my organizations better. I would trust those organizations better. In fact, I would even bring more customers to them because I believe, oh, these people know what they are doing. So what these measures put in place is not just about complying with standard. You are also affecting your customers in a way. You are giving your customers rest. You are making them trust you better. So organizations should not even, so when it comes to security of data, it is not even about, I want to be regulated, I want to be compliant when it comes to regulatory. I don't want NDPA to come and catch me. I don't want to allow. No, it's not even about that. You have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look at your customers. You have to care for them. Imagine your customer is every day that your bank is always under attack. Today, your data is exposed. The next day, they've done ransomware attack. The following month, another attack. You want to even kill the customers because they will not have rest of mind. So sometimes security of data is not even about trust alone. Sometimes it will affect your customers' health, their psychological state. And to save myself of that psychological trauma, because Nigeria is already hard itself, I'll just go and pack anything I have with that company and take it to another company. Or I will just decide to just cease having any relationship with them. At least I would have my peace of mind. So that's what data backups, disaster recovery is about. So when it comes to data backups, we have types of data of backups: full backup, incremental backup, differential backup. So when it comes to full backup, it is a complete copy of all data from A to Z, from the data. Okay, let's assume that you are typing a document, right? So full backup would mean that data, that document that you typed from page 1 to 100, is copied, is completely copied. Right, that's full backup. Now, incremental backups, it's only backups that changed, it's only backups change data since the last backup. So let's say the last full backup that we did, or the last backup we did was yesterday. And today I added something to the document. Incremental backup is only going to back up that change that occurred. It's not going to start again from the scratch. Differential backup in its own stead it backups all change data since the last full backup. So every of the change data since the last full backup, it will back everything up again. So while incremental backs up only the change that happens since the last backup, so the last backup could be differential backup. It's only the change that happens from that day to the last backup. Differential backup all change data since the last full backup data, full backup. So let's say the full backup happened in January. Differential data, the full backup happened in January. Differential data would back up everything from that January to, let's say, June that you're trying to do the differential backup. Incremental backup, it is only what happened if your last backup was yesterday. It's only the change as at the last backup that it would concern itself with. That's what the types of backups are concerned with. Full backup, incremental backup, differential backup. Now, still on data backups and disaster recovery, I want us to familiarize ourselves with some specific terms. And one of the terms is what we call recovery time objective, RTO. Now, RTO is the amount of time that it takes to recover normal business operation after an outage. So every company, when it comes to, let's say your company is about to create or prepare a disaster recovery plan, which is expected of every company. If anybody is serious with their company, whether small company or big company, every company has to have the DRP, a data recovery plan, and a business continuity plan. Every company has to have it. Now, so when you are in the middle or in the course of drafting or preparing your disaster recovery plan, one of the things you need to consider is your recovery time objective. Now, and this one speaks to the fact that it speaks to the amount of time that it takes to recover normal business operation after an outage. So let's say that when thunder strikes, it affected your entire database. Now, the RTO will be that you've given your company or your organization, let's say, 1 month to recover normal business operation after this outage. So this does not mean that your company will not work for some period in time. It will definitely, come back. But we are saying that before it can get back to normal, this is the amount of time that it will take. So as you look to set your RTO, you will need to consider how much time you are willing to lose and the impact that time will have on your bottom line. So to consider your RTO, you have to consider the amount of time that you are willing to lose. So the company is saying that, no, we can't afford to lose more than 12 hours after any outage, whether major or minor. That's the RTO. And the RTO differs greatly from one type of business to another. So what it will take, the RTO of a bank, you cannot expect it to be as long as the RTO of a law firm. Because customer will not want to hear anything. So it differs from business to business. So the other term that you need to know is recovery point objective. Now, this refers to the amount of data that you can afford to lose in a disaster. Can your company afford to lose 11 million data or 11 million people data or 100 million people data, or is just 1,000 people data that you can afford to lose? So for recovery point objective, you might To ensure that this does not happen, you might need to copy data to a remote data center continuously so that an outage will not result in any data loss. So if, for example, by the nature of your own company, you can't afford to lose any data, it means that backup is not even a thing of, it's not an option for your company. And we're not even talking about backup on databases in that company. We're talking about backup to another data center. You know, some companies are big enough, they're large enough that they have different remote data centers. They don't have just one. They have different remote data centers. So if anything happens in that major remote data center, they have another place that they have, copied all their data, and they can go and recover those things in those places. So for companies that cannot afford to lose any data, they need to consider this. Now, there's what we call failover. Now, failover is the disaster recovery process of automatically offloading tasks to backup system in a way that is seamless to users. So when they say failover, it means that the primary data fails over. Did I say failover? Fail over from your primary data to a secondary site. So you are taking your data from the primary site to a secondary site. Now, failback is taking back that data from that secondary site. You are taking it back to the primary center. So failover, when it's failover, it goes from the primary data center to the secondary data center. When it fails back, goes from the primary data center, from the secondary data center back to the primary data center. So all of this, failover, failback, they are all processes in data recovery. Another thing you should note, another term is restore. Yeah, restore. Restore is the process of transferring backup data to your primary system or data center. So the restore process is considered part of backup rather than disaster recovery. So basically, that's what recovery is about. Now, let's see briefly data recovery plan. Like I said, every organization needs to have data recovery plan. Every organization, whether small company, large company, whatever category your organization falls under, you need a disaster recovery plan. Why do I keep saying data recovery plan? Disaster recovery plan. Now, the disaster recovery plan is a formalized document that an organization creates to document or codify the policies and procedures in response to a disaster. The thing is, they always say something that cyber attacks is not a matter of if, but a matter of when. It's not a matter of if it will happen, because it will definitely happen. But it is the matter of when. Even the largest or the biggest companies, they are experiencing, biggest companies that are big about cyber security, they are experiencing cyber attacks day in, day out. So it's not about, so when you hear a company was, an attack was launched against the company, it doesn't actually speak, or it doesn't mean that the company is not effective or their security teams are not effective. No, it doesn't really say that. It will always say or speak to that when regulators investigate and they saw that, oh, they didn't even put any measures in place. That's when you can say, oh, they are not effective. But when it comes to cyber attacks, it's not about effectiveness or not, because attackers are growing daily. Attackers are advancing daily. So do attacks also advance. So cybersecurity attacks is not about if, it's about when. And that is why a company has to be prepared. A company has to be prepared. And one of the ways a company can prepare is having a disaster recovery plan. Now, I said something earlier. I said a disaster recovery plan is not the same as a business continuity plan. Of course, a disaster recovery plan is a component or a subset of business continuity plan. Now, while DRP focuses on technical recovery, That's what it focuses on. Restoring IT systems, restoring data infrastructures, minimizing downtime. That's what the DRP is about. It focuses on technical recovery. But business continuity plan focuses on everything about business operations of that organization. People, processes, facilities, even IT. So you would look at business continuity plan as the mother, why DRP is one of the children. So for DRP, there are so many things that you would I've mentioned some of these things that you must consider: the RPO, the RTO, the offsite storage location. Remember, I said that most large companies have remote data centers aside from their primary sites. Those are the things you're going to consider: the offsite storage location, the communication plans. How do you intend to communicate to the staff? How do you intend to communicate to the management? Because it's really important. I shared a post on LinkedIn this week, just I think Wednesday or thereabout, that cybersecurity is not a thing of ITO, it's a thing of every person in the organization. And it's really bad that the management of most companies do not see it as something that they need to do, that is very, very important, that is very, very crucial. They see it as probably one of those expenses that they just need to create budgets for. And that's why some of the times the budgets are always small. But thankfully, the way the cost is slamming them costs, and the regulators are slamming all these companies' costs, maybe they will wake up and understand the fact that, oh, this thing is not a joke, right? So you have to consider, in drafting a disaster recovery plan, you have to consider the communications plan, you have to consider the business impact assessment, even the risk analysis. Everything has to be considered. Those are the things you need to consider, in creating a disaster recovery plan. Now, steps to create a disaster recovery plan. Now, to define the best approach for your business, you must weigh the value of your data, of your system, of your application against the risk your organization can afford to assume. When we talk about risk management, one of the treatments for risk is risk acceptance. That is, your company is ready to accept some risk. So disaster recovery is not saying, oh, the best approach to disaster recovery, creating a disaster recovery plan, is that you have to weigh the value of your data. Don't forget, I mentioned something about the amount of data, the RPO. You have to weigh the value of your data, of your system, of your application against the risk that your organization can afford to assume. So that means that if your organization does not have a large risk appetite, you need to consider that in your DRP. So that's what they call risk appetite, the amount of risk your organization is willing and able to or can afford to assume. So once the organization say, oh, we can assume this risk, that kind of treatment is called risk acceptance. So in creating a DRP, you should obtain commitment throughout the organization. And I would say that your commitment should start from the top. Because the thing is, if you're going to start from the bottom, start doing meeting with other members of the organization, other departments, you might be deceiving yourself. Because if you eventually create a plan, it's dust that will cover that plan. So you need to start from the top. And that's why communication is an essential skill in every profession, including information security. You must be able to communicate you must be able to communicate your plan or what you intend to do to the people at the top, the management, the ownership, the shareholders, blah, 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 like that. You will know that these people, what they are concerned about is profits, revenue. That's their business. So that's what they're concerned about. You see all those technical or legal jargons that we are saying, they don't even care. The only way they will care is if you are able to link all these things to what they care about. So if what they care about is finance, revenue, profit, dividend, increment in branches, if that's what they care about, you should be, and you must be able to link what you are intending to do or the measures you're intending to put in place, you must be able to link it with all these things that they care about. That's why communication is key. Another thing you need to do after, getting the commitment of the organization, you need to establish a planning committee. You need to establish a planning committee, and planning committees consist of people from certain departments. Of course, the IT department, they have to be involved. There will be selected people from the IT department, selected people from the security team, selected people from compliance, selected people from legal, those critical departments. And of course, the HR, there has to be somebody from that department too, because, they are concerned with the staff of the company. So if everything is put in place, they are the one that would ensure that all the staff, they know about it and it's been implemented and all that. So there has to be established a planning committee, after which you start to perform risk analysis. And you know that in this the planning committee, the essence of those people in the department that you have mentioned is not just for them to come and sit down and be looking at you. It's for them to, consider, that's why I said critical department. It's for them to consider the risk in their own department that can affect the company. It's for them to do a thorough risk analysis of what can affect the company from their own department, what can affect the business from their own department, and they will bring it together as risk analysis and business impact analysis. So it's all these things that the committee would now evaluate and analyze to come up with, a single document when it comes to the risk analysis and business impact analysis in that organization. Now, we need to also prioritize operations. Right? When we talk about prioritizing operations, it is important to determine the maximum amount of time that any department can function without each critical system. You consider the personnel, consider the policy, consider the service, consider the systems. So, okay, if anything happens, how long time will it take for this particular department not to function? How long time will this one not function? So all those things has to be considered. The operations of that organization needs to be considered. And thereafter, you perform data collection, you collect necessary data. The data is not only restricted to the names and all that. It's also, when we talk about the company data, we are talking about, okay, this risk that we have accumulated, what is it about? Every necessary data that would help you in creating a comprehensive DRP. After that, you organize and document a written plan. Organize it, document it, do table method, whatever. You guys come together, sit down at a table, discuss it, give reasons, whatever it is, document your written plan. After you've documented your written plan, you need to test the plan, because a plan is not a plan when it is not tested. So if you say, we have a disaster recovery plan that is not tested, that's dangerous. So because if you don't know the effectiveness of that plan that you have when real attack happens. So we need to test every plan that you have created so that if there is any shortcoming, you will be able to fix it when you notice such shortcoming in the test. And the last thing is to approve and implement. Of course, we know who will approve. Don't forget, we said we are going to start we need to get the commitment of people in the organization, especially those at the top. Because after all the plan, they need to approve, and implementation has to be done instantly. So those are what steps that you need to take to come up with a disaster recovery plan. Don't forget, all these things are to achieve what the act has provided for: organizational and technical measures to ensure security, integrity, and availability of data. Now, I haven't talked about all those, talked about backup and disaster recovery, encryption, talked about data security and the means to ensure access control. Now we would now talk about data storage and transmission, because this is an important part of technical measures. Data can either be at rest or in transit. So for data storage and transmission, what is data storage? It refers to the methods and devices used to store digital data. Now, secure data storage would involve using technology and practices to protect data, whether they are stored on physical device or in the cloud, or they are transmitted across networks, that is in transit. So they can be at rest when they are probably in a physical device or they are stored in the cloud, and they can be in transit if they are being transmitted across networks. Now, what are the best practices for secure data storage? Of course, we've discussed some of these things. We said access control. Don't forget what we discussed under access control. We said that access control is you giving people the amount of access or the level of access that they need to achieve their role. And we talked about the fact that there are different types of access control: attribute-based access control, mandatory access control, discretionary access control, role-based access control. So all these things are still what we are going to be repeating when it comes to secure data storage. Another thing is also data storage encryption. You see the same thing that we know under encryption: the symmetric encryption, asymmetric encryption, advanced encryption standard, the end-to-end encryption. Those are the things that we also need to consider when we are storing our data. Such data needs to be encrypted such that even if there was a ransomware attack, these people they can't even decrypt the data because it's already encrypted. So it is of no use to them. You know, ransomware attack occurs where the cyber attackers hijack your company's network and they lock you people out. Ma'am, you can't access it. Nobody can access it. And they're asking you for ransom. Pay us Bitcoin. This is also Bitcoin before we give you back your system or network. That's ransomware. But imagine your company activated encryption. Your data is encrypted. Even if they ransom it, they launch ransomware attack, they will still have no use of it because it is encrypted. Except most of the time, they use what they do brute force attack. They keep guessing, guessing till they feel like, they've gotten the code, but they will keep guessing at least. And during that period, you can do some other things from your end to get back your access or your network. Or better still, that's where backup would come in. You back it up. So they can be holding the encrypted data. You'll be using the one that you already backed up. You can see that all these things are intertwined. They are connected. They are connected. Now, another best practice for secure data storage: immutable storage. This one, it acts like a time capsule for your data, preserving it precisely as it was when you stored it. Even if someone attempts to tamper with or delete your information, the system will not allow it. That's immutable storage. So it is stored in such a way that let anybody try to access anything, the system will not allow it. It is built that way. Now, zero trust architecture. You must have heard of zero trust. Zero trust is a security model that assumes that threat could be external and internal. That is, zero trust is not saying this one is an employee of our company, we trust this person. Zero trust is saying there is zero trust, whether external person or internal person. Everybody needs to be verified before they get access. Everybody needs to be verified or authenticated before they get access. That's zero trust. So these are best practices when it comes to securing data storage: access control, encryption, immutable storage, zero trust architecture. Now let's see data transmission. Now, data transmission refers to the transfer of data between devices and systems. It could be a wired transmission, that is through physical cables. You must have seen that. I've seen a number of that in my office where I work. data is being transferred or transmitted through wired cable or through wireless transmission, maybe Wi-Fi, right? So data transmission is just that data is being transferred, data is in transit at that point in time. Now, secure data transmission refers to safeguarding data while it is being transferred from one location to another, ensuring it remains confidential and protected from unauthorized access. Now, we are just going to repeat what we have already said. When it comes to securing data in transit, what are the means that we can use in securing this data? Encryption. Encryption is the guardian of data transmission. The guardian of data transmission, encryption. That's when you are browsing in a particular browser or website, it is encrypted. When you are using a secure website browser anyways, it is encrypted. So encryption is the guardian of data transmission. So encryption happens before the data is transmitted, and data is decrypted to its original state at the recipient end. That's when encryption happens. It happens before it is transmitted and is then decrypted to its original state at the recipient end. Now, of course, we know that it ensures confidentiality and integrity of data. Now, another means which is also connected to encryption, because this particular protocol uses encryption. That's what we call secure socket layer, SSL. Now, secure socket layer is very critical in securing web communication. Now, it ensures that system data, such as, sensitive data, such as login credentials, financial information, and all those sensitive data that you can have, it ensures that they are encrypted and protected while being exchanged between servers and web browsers. So it's a SSL is a very secure means of communicating on the web, right? And this SSL, they have certifications. Websites that uses HTTPS, that you will see it on your website, whichever website that you visit, it uses HTTPS and it gives you like a padlock sign. That padlock sign, you should be rest assured that those websites are SSL certified. Now, but the thing about the certificate is that it expires. Recently, sometime last month, I accessed the website that the certificate was expired. But my browser will always tell me, do you still want to proceed? This website SSL is expired. Do you still want to proceed? The fact that it's expired means that at that point in time, until they renew it, that particular website is not secured. Well, I still proceeded, because I needed that particular website for something I wanted to do. Okay, so SSL are considered to be more trustworthy and secured. Now, the next is the Secure File Transfer Protocol. Now, this utilizes secure shell for secure file transfer. So when a file is going to be transferred, the SFTP secures it encrypts it, and authenticates secure file transfer from one device to another. Now, virtual private networks, VPN, it creates encrypted connection between two endpoints over the internet, such that unauthorized person cannot access the information or data being transmitted at that point in time. It is encrypted. So that's about data transmission. Just like I said, most of these measures, technical measures, are almost the same, right? Now, when it comes to technical controls, these are measures that the organization put in place to control access to an organization's network, software, devices, and data. So that's why they call it control. What do you put in place to technically control all these things? Because in cybersecurity or information security generally, we have different forms of control: administrative control, organizational control, physical control, technical control like this one, and so many more. If you read the ISO 27001, you would see all these controls. As a matter of fact, that particular standard even explains how you can you can execute these controls in your organization. You can create, how you can even create policies for these controls in your organization. So today we are specifically talking about the technical control, which seeks to use, technical means to secure the company's networks, software, devices, and data. Now, I was saying, I mentioned something earlier. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. I said that every security control that we have, they serve different goals. They have different purpose. And when we talk about purpose, we are talking about preventative purpose. Preventative goal. We're talking about detective goal. We're talking about corrective goal, deterrent goal, compensating goal, right? Now, when it comes to preventative goal, what it means is that this particular control is to prevent security incidents. When I talk about detective goal, it's saying that this particular control is to detect security incident. For corrective, it is to mitigate the impact when an incident occurs. Deterrence controls, what they do is to deter attackers from making any attempt. You deter them. And compensating, the one that achieves the compensating goal, that one is used in case another control does not work. Probably you put in place a particular control that seeks to achieve the preventative control and did not work. Compensative control is what you use to fit in that gap. Now, some of the technical controls that we have firewall. Firewall monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and blocks any unwanted traffic. So firewall is set up in such a way that there are set of traffic that it recognizes and will not flag, right? Let's say, for example, your device, okay, let's say, for example, you visited a place, and in that place, in that particular environment, in that particular house, if a stranger comes or an intruder steps on a particular thing, there's something that the owner has in that house or probably on his device that will tell him, intruder has entered, intruder has entered, intruder has entered. That's more like what firewall does. So it monitors the incoming and outgoing network traffic, and if it blocks any unwanted traffic. So if there's a traffic that does not fit in the one that it already knows or is already used to or is already stored in it, it will block such traffic. If it's let's assume that you just saw somebody, a stranger that I have not seen before, and you immediately closed your door. That, who is this one? Who be this? You closed your door. That's what firewall does. So it inspects every traffic that is going in and coming out and blocks any unusual or unwanted traffic. And of course,
Hello, Dio. I stop hearing you. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we have lost you.
No, she's still in the meeting. Okay, let's just give her a few seconds, I
Myself,
guess.
I can't hear her.
Technical
Okay.
glitch. Okay, so I guess she's now still trying to fix the network, but we're going to continue when she joins shortly. Okay, she's back. Still trying to. So, Dio, can you hear me? Can you come up now? Hello, Dio. Okay, so while she's trying to fix her network, let me just say that If you have any question, please start putting your questions together. You can drop them in the chat box, and I will be sharing the link to her previous webinar, the one we had last week. So we have the recording on YouTube. So I'll be sharing the link to that before we finish today's session. So while we're still waiting for Dio to come back, let me just quickly ask us if there is any point of, or if there's any contribution at all. Is there any area that you think you need clarity? Okay, she's back and trying to
I
fix.
think
Okay,
I'm back now. So sorry, everyone.
no problem, please. Internet has a mind of its own.
I know, right?
All right, so you can go, please.
All right, thank you. Let me try and share my screen again. Okay. All right, so we're talking about the technical controls that we have. We've talked about antivirus software. We've talked about firewalls. So I was saying about antivirus software that imagine you download, most of the time when you download an antivirus software on your phone or your device, it will run and scan whether there is malware or viruses. And if there is, it will notify you so that you can get it cleared, right? So antivirus software, periodically your software will run a more comprehensive scan of your devices. And when it does that, if it detects something fishy, it will notify you and ask you to take action, whether you want to throw it away or whatever. Now, just like firewall, the goal that antivirus software seeks to achieve is detective and preventive. It will detect whether there's a virus or a malware, and then it will tell you what to do, or it will ask you, what do you want to do? Do you want to clean it, or you want to leave it that way? Whichever you decide to use, or whichever you decide to go with. Now, the other form of control, technical control, is intrusion detective and preventive system. They actually do two things. There's intrusion detective system and intrusion preventive system. Now, what intrusion detective system, just like the name implies, what it does is that it helps you detect unauthorized access and malicious activity in your system. Why intrusion preventive system helps you to prevent the already detected unauthorized access or malicious activity in your system. So this is also a form of control, technical control that you put in place to detect and to prevent malicious activities. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is regular updates and patches. Of course, we know that, sometimes Microsoft will just tell us, oh, there's a new patch. Please go and patch your laptop or blah, 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 blah. iOS will come. There's an upgraded OS operating system. Please make sure you upgrade your phone, your devices, blah, blah, like that. So regular patches, because at every point in time, companies or all these devices, there is always vulnerability detected. We still come to vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, right? Companies regularly at a point in time, depending on the time they decide to conduct vulnerability testing. When they conduct vulnerability testing, is to detect and know which weakness or flaw is in their system. So once they find out that, oh, there's a particular flaw that attackers can exploit, they immediately release a patch for it. And once they release that patch, they will send notification to all of their users. So was detected, they will start naming it. Oh, CRV 396, blah, 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 blah. You know those technical stuff. That thing is to cause a day anyways, but they will send you notification. They will write articles so that you guys can go and do the needful. because they've detected a flaw that cyber attackers can exploit. Now, if you as an individual, you decide not to now accept that patch, you're on your own. Whatever happens to your system, they can't, or network, they can't take the blame for it, right? So, and for regular updates, your system will tell you, I need to update, or they'll give you notification. They would, in fact, the way my system does it, and I believe some of your system does it too, is that it will send you notification. Are you going to update now, or do it in 30 minutes time, or maybe later? Sometimes I'll click maybe later, and I'll keep clicking maybe later. But the thing is that I'm doing myself, not the system. I hope you understand. So technical regular updates and patches is one of the technical controls that we have. And for some other measures that we already spoke about, VPN, encryption, access control, backups, all these things, they are under technical controls. Now, coming to vulnerability assessment that I mentioned, by the way, vulnerability assessment, sorry. Yeah. Oh. Okay, so vulnerability assessment cover the flaws are present in your system or network. But the only thing that vulnerability assessment does not do is that after it discovers it, it will not exploit it, right? It will not even exploit it or, try to differentiate or anything. The only thing vulnerability assessment achieves is that it discovers any vulnerability that is present in your system. Now, that will take us to the key aspect of vulnerability assessment. Primarily, they use automated scanning tools for vulnerability assessments. Talk of Nmap, talk of Nessus, all those people in the technical area, they know the tools that they use. But talk of Nmap, talk of, is it Nessus or Nexus? They call it one name, I don't even know. But yeah, those are the tools that they use. So all these tools are automated. And because of that, vulnerability assessment can actually be easy because these tools scan for these vulnerabilities. Now, vulnerability assessment also aims to cover many assets within an organization's IT infrastructure. This includes servers, workstation, databases, network devices, and applications. Another thing about vulnerability assessment is that they are non-invasive. That is, they do not attempt to exploit vulnerabilities actively. What they simply do is to identify the presence of vulnerability and also consider the severity of such vulnerability. So vulnerability assessment does not include, let's exploit this vulnerability that we have discovered, unlike penetration testing. Penetration testing, when they discover the vulnerability, they will exploit it. And exploiting it is not without the permission of the company, of course. It's with the permission or the consent of the company. So will now act like, let's say they will stand in place of the attacker. Okay, how would the attacker exploit the vulnerability if they were the one that found it? That's what penetration testing is about. So more like they are the devil's advocate. They are like the devil's advocate. They are standing, when they discover the vulnerability or the flaw, they will now stand in place of an attacker and exploit that vulnerability to see how attackers will actually do it in real life if they were the one that actually found out such vulnerability. Now, due to automation, vulnerability assessment can be conducted regularly, weekly, or monthly. So it depends on, the company, depends on the value of their data, depends on the size of the company, depends on, the sensitivity of their data and all that. Those are what they're going to consider to determine how regular they want to conduct vulnerability assessment. And also vulnerability assessments offer a high-level overview of potential vulnerability. They identify the vulnerability, they determine the severity score, and after that, they create a report on these things. And that will lead me to the steps when it comes to vulnerability assessment. Just like I said, once they discover the assets they want to scan, if it is somebody's system or a particular network, they discover the assets. After they discover the assets, they scan for vulnerability. Don't forget, I said vulnerability assessment is done using automated tools. So the automated tools scan this vulnerability. When they scan the vulnerability, the assessment is now done. You know, they write everything down. Oh, this is the vulnerability. This is the severity of it. This is the impact it will have on our business. So once they do the assessment, they will now report it. They will now, they will report it as a report. Then they will now do a remediation of the vulnerability. For example, probably the vulnerability that they discovered is a particular leak or a hole in one of their code. And they know that this code, if this code is left that way, attackers would enter through this loophole and gain access to sensitive data, right? Maybe that's the vulnerability that they discovered. Now, what would they do? What they would do to ensure that that vulnerability is not exploited, to remediate that vulnerability, is probably to update their code. After they update their code, they circulate it to every department in the organization. They make sure that every system connected to this particular code is updated to the new code. And when it is done, they circulate the necessary information to the organization. So that's what remediation is all about. Once they discover the vulnerability, they must create a remedy for it. They can't just leave it. If they discover a vulnerability in Microsoft, they can't leave it. The next thing is probably to release a new patch for that vulnerability. Now, the next thing is penetration testing. Like I said, they seem to be similar, but they are not the same. Because while they are both scanning tools, they are both scanning tools, but their result is different. Penetration testing, it seeks to exploit the vulnerability that is discovered. When they exploit the vulnerability discovered, they will now come up with a report of the vulnerability, how they penetrated, and the impact. If it was, let's say, an attacker that penetrated when they penetrated, the impact of such attack, after they write the impact and everything, they will now give us remedy for such vulnerability that they discovered. So, penetration testing. Okay, I think there's a mistake on my slide. I would correct that. So for penetration testing, skilled professionals conduct penetration testing following predefined rules of agreement and obtain explicit permission from the organization. Like I said, penetration tester cannot just, there was a time I did a training, I concluded it recently. When we did the training, penetration testing, the track, they told us, please, you guys, don't go and make sure you don't try this on anybody's network, blah, 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 like that. They even shared one act with us. Computer something act is against the act, blah, 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 like that. I was in my head, I was like I wanted to try it. I was not going to try it in any ways. I just wanted to know what it is about. So penetration testing, the way it is, they work with explicit permission from the organization. So from what I know, from my friends that are penetration testers, what they do is that most of them are even independent penetration testers, but the company will reach out to them that they want them to penetrate their system for vulnerabilities, and they will do that. And when they do that, they will give them reports and all that. So that's what penetration is all about. Now, PT also, it targets specific systems, applications or network segments based on agreed upon risk and priorities. Everything has to be agreed upon. And PT goes beyond identifying vulnerability, just like I said, to attempting to exploit them and understanding the potential impact and remediation efforts required. So PT is is like it goes a step ahead of vulnerability assessment. It doesn't just discover, it also exploits. So when they exploit it, they will now come together with a report of the impact and the remediation. So just like I showed you for vulnerability assessment, penetration testing also has its own step, from planning to scanning, from scanning to gaining access, from gaining access to maintaining access, from maintaining access to analysis and reporting. So those are the steps when it comes to penetration testing. Don't forget, all these things connects to technical measures that the Act, Section 39 of the NDPA, requires of every data controller and data processor. So if you don't have all these things in place, because penetration testing and vulnerability assessment are also part of technical measures that you need to put in place. So if you don't have all these things in place, your company is not compliant with the provision of the Act. And if you are a staff of a company and this is what you do, your responsibility is to ensure that your company is compliant in all these ways. Right. And that will bring us to the end of the class. So in conclusion, technical measures play a vital role in protecting data from unauthorized access, theft, and exploitation. By implementing comprehensive technical controls, organizations can significantly reduce risk of data breaches and cyber attacks. And just like I've also mentioned earlier, always remember that cyber attacks are not questions of if, but a question of when. So in the anticipation of the when, your organization has to be ready to either prevent such attack, or even when it happens, the organization is able to take it and recover and bounce back immediately. So that's the essence of, putting all these controls in place. So I actually did some quiz. I gave some quiz question here, but I think we already answered one or two of them. I think this is just the one that we've not answered. I didn't ask. Let me try and pull that up. Okay. So you can just say it if you want to answer me, or you can drop it in the chat box. So which of the following deals with the amount of time that it takes to recover normal business operations after an outage? We discussed this when we were discussing. Is it recovery time objective? Is it failback or failover or rejective recovery point objective?
Recovery time objective.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Irene. Thank you. She's correct. Recovery time objective. All right. Okay, so that'll bring me to the end of my class this evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I appreciate you, and I hope you learned something from the class.
Wow. Thank you so much, Oladayo. In fact, I don't even know how to thank you. You did justice to the important thing that we're supposed to learn in this session. Like I said last week, we have organization measures and we have technical measures that you need to put in place to ensure compliance with Nigerian Data Protection Act. And of course, Nigerian Data Protection Act is a mirror of the European GDPR from our previous law, the NDPR, that is Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, that metamorphosed into an act. So with this, we've been able to cover for the organizational measures and the technical measures. And I will tell you that beyond putting policies and procedures together, if you don't have a robust cybersecurity implementation framework within your organization, you might not still be able um, to comply as you're supposed to. And I just want to add that when we are discussing cybersecurity, information security, it's not just about, it doesn't just affect the digital assets alone. It also affects, let's say, manual assets. For instance, if you keep information in hard copies, in files, in cabinets, she mentioned access control earlier. What access control do you also have in place to ensure that such information are secure? Do you have fireproof cabinet? Do you have log to to audit who went there to access information, and as the person return whatever file or asset the person went there to pick? So just to tell you that it's not just about digital assets, it also affects our analog, or let me say manual, document and information, depending on which one applies in your organization. So thank you so much, Oladayo. We have questions in the chat box. I think we have shot beyond time, but we'll just pick questions that are relevant, so relevant to data protection. And the reason being that we are focused for pulling up this is to carry every organization, especially startup, along about necessary or let me say basic understanding of data protection and privacy that they need to abide with. So the first question I have here says that, what is the scope of NDPC Act in terms of number of data to register? So this question is not that clear, Mr. Murtala. I would prefer if you can just speak to it. But
Yes.
before you do that, let me quickly make a clarification. We have Nigerian Data Protection Act, and then we have a commission, which is Nigerian Data Protection Commission. So you may take note of that while you rephrase your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I wish to recommend the presenter. She has did very well, as already said by others. Thank you. My question is, the data protection, what is the number? I mean, each and every organization must register with the commission. So in terms of registering with the commission, is there any minimum number that an organization must have in terms of the data it collects before it registers? That is the first question there. Thank you.
All right. Olada, I think I can just speak to that with your permission. Okay. So regarding registration as a data controller or data processor, so basically the act requires that if you process, let's say, so we have different categories. We have our three categories, but beyond the categorization, I think a whole lot of things needs to be considered, right? So, but basically, if you process up to okay, so 2,000 is audit. If you process up to 1,000, you are expected to, let's say, register as a data controller. But beyond beyond the numbers, right? Beyond the numbers, one of the things I want you to consider is the sensitivity of data you collect and process. So, for instance, if your organization is a healthcare service provider and you have 200 patients, of course, you deal with sensitive data of patient, health record, and the likes. So you can't say because you are not processing up to 1,000, you don't need to register. right? And also under the
Yes.
category, under the different categories, we have ordinary, we have ultra high, we have extra high. So the ultra high, you will see we have different organizations under that category, and all of them, either you process up to 1,000 or 2,000, you need to register. So organizations like financial institutions, multinationals, and the likes. So because of the sensitivity of data they process, they need to register no matter the number. So imagine you're going to engage in transfer of data across border and you say you only process 200 data. That is not significant. We still need you to register. So I hope
Thank you,
that
sir.
answers the
Thank you.
question.
Yeah, it has answered the question.
Then
So
I
the
think
second one,
the second question, I spoke to it earlier when I said when we talk about data protection, information security, it doesn't only affect the digital assets. I mean, information you collect online or via digital medium. So it also affects paper. So including, in short, let me say data protection generally does not only affect digital means of procuring or processing data, it also affects manual ways of processing data. Like I mentioned last week, um, you visiting an organization and you need to document your attendance in that premises. So the fact that you are documenting it on paper doesn't mean that your data is not important. It still needs to be protected,
okay,
notwithstanding the fact that it
thank
is
you.
processed in a manual way.
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it has answered the question. Because why I threw this question, normally in our garages where people travel to the local vehicles, these are vehicles, you see the garages collecting data every day from the people traveling from, like I base in Sokoto here, Sokoto to Lagos, Sokoto, different data they are collecting, and they don't take care of this data. So that is why I
Yeah,
asked this question. Thank you.
yes, I think that resonates with me well, right? I remember one of my classes on data protection in Unilag years back. Someone raised this issue,
Yeah,
and like Oladayo said earlier when during our presentation, there are times that you need a particular service, but because the organization is not aware, right, about data
yeah,
protection and the proper means to process data, you need their service. Probably you are even desperate, but you are now considering privacy and benefit. So it's now the issue of which one is my priority. What do I really need? So in instance where they collect personal information in the park, I think what I do basically is sensitive information, like to me at that moment, like my phone number, I don't write it correctly, right? So that even if you don't know the proper way to process it or to protect such information, and it falls into the hand of a bad actor, I won't still be affected. So it is now me taking precaution. So, but usually it's supposed to be that the organization is aware. And I will tell you that there are some transport companies that are aware of data protection. I at least have come across one or two that have a data protection officer. And that's one of the essence of this uh, webinar, that organizations that are not aware of data protection should be aware. Unfortunately, we can't have most organization in this webinar, but we have the recording online. So we just hope that as time goes by, organizations get to take data protection important, not withstanding the sector they are playing.
thank
So
you.
thank you so much, uh, Mr. Mutala.
Yes, I have my final question there.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I don't actually want us to address this in this meeting because
Yes, but
it's not
sir, we are
it
talking
doesn't
about
really-
privacy.
uh,
So and you are lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. That is why I joined you people to learn.
okay,
We're talking
actually,
about privacy.
so let me say something in passing.
Okay.
Of course, we are still on record, but you know that
If we
uh,
can, if you are not safe, we can exchange email or number so that you tell me. I don't mind. Please.
all right, that's fine. But
Yeah.
let me just say something about this whole issue. So
Okay.
this whole issue is intertwined with different position of law and also perception of people, culture, societal belief, and the like. So one cogent thing I want to say is privacy generally, right,
Yeah.
is subjective to reasoning. What do I mean? What you consider to be private might not be private to me. I remember writing a research, was it 2021 or 2022, where I was researching into issue of CCTV, the use of surveillance for security. Yeah, for security, because there is this cyber security provision, cyber security act provision that says that um, okay, even the Nigerian Data Protection Act, one of the exceptions is that you don't uh, your privacy will be suspended when there is a security issue. I mean, national
Yes.
security,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, and some people are of the opinion that okay, when we deploy CCTV, it's for security, but under the act, in fact, such is even uh not encouraged, especially when you are not procuring consent. So there is a need for um no there's a need for CCTV notice. No, now where I'm going is your right might be suspended, especially when you are in the public space. So someone that left a, a cozy environment and went into an uncompleted building can should know that anybody can pass by and see whatever thing that is going on inside that place. So I can say that privacy in the public space at times is dicey. You might not really be able to prove privacy because it's in the public space. Although there is still a level of privacy in the public space, right? But in instance where two consenting adults left a completed building and went into an uncompleted building, I think to a large extent they have traded their privacy. So now if another person now picked camera and take that picture, if I want to prosecute that matter, I may not want to prosecute it under data protection and privacy because the chances of succeeding with that matter may be slim. Basically, basically, Data Protection Act, Nigerian Data Protection Act, European GDPR are um, are premised on the principles of data protection, about seven of them, which, if I look at this matter, might not really fall under any of those principles. So, and that's why I wouldn't want to prosecute it under Data Protection Act. And the major reason why I don't want to actually discuss it here, but I want to stop here so that we can round up and then we can take the discussion further.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Mustala. And I want to appreciate everyone that stay with us to the end of this webinar.
Come on, sing the piano.
So let me just ask if any other person want to say anything before I round up total completely. Okay, I think no one has anything for me. So, in the absence of um, none, I want to appreciate everyone once again. And I want you to run with the reason for organizing this webinar. It is for organizations to understand their obligation and what it's required of them to do to comply with Nigerian Data Protection Act. And if you are part of any organizations that need to understand this, please, for further clarity, you can reach out. Um, I think that you can drop your email address. I will also drop mine. So you can reach out for further discussion and engagement. And then if you are, let's say if you are a data protection officer, a lawyer, or um, an enthusiast of data protection, you can also take the knowledge that has been shared and also run with it, discuss it on LinkedIn, because Nigeria is just going into this and we need to, I mean, Nigerians need to know about data protection, and that's one of the things we are trying to do here. So thank you so much. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you need support for data uh, processor, data controller registration, you can reach out. If you need support for audit, you can reach out. If you need support for review, if you need support, if you need a DPO, you can reach out and we will be of help. Thank you so much. Mr. Murtala, I've seen your comment also. So we have come to the end of this meeting. I will also drop um, my email address so that anyone can reach out. So thank you so much, and do enjoy the rest of the weekend. Bye.
Data data protection kìíní.
So, sir, you have not dropped it. You don't go. You have to drop something for me.
It's good to have you here, Mr. Musala. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, the presenter. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome, sir.
I have been following people on LinkedIn.
All right, sir. All right, sir. We'll look forward to further engagement.
Okay, thank you.